We also welcome to my left several team members involved in the writing of Saints, historian Steve Harper and Lisa Tate Olson, as well as writer Scott Hales. They will be available for interviews following the program. We will first be pleased to hear from Elder Renlund. He will be followed by Elder Snow. We will next hear from Matt Groh, a historian and director of the Publications Division. Elder Cook will then provide remarks and conclude the presentation portion of the event. We will then have time for individual interviews. Elder Renlund.
Thank you for being here and having the interest in being here. The history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is precious to both members of the church and to the Lord. On the day the church was organized in April 1830, the Lord said, "Behold, there shall be a record kept among you." For the first year, Oliver Cowdery kept that record, and then the Lord called John Whitmer to fulfill that role. In 1831, the Lord declared, "It shall be appointed unto him," John Whitmer, "to keep the church record and history continually. Wherefore it shall be given him, inasmuch as he's faithful by the Comforter, to write these things." A later revelation to John Whitmer told him how to fulfill his calling, that he would write this history for the good of the church and especially for the rising generations. These revelations provide a pattern of how the Lord wants the record to be kept, his history to be kept, of his dealings with his children, and that it should be under the direction of the Holy Ghost. It's a pattern that God has followed before. He instructed ancient prophets to do the same. From Nephi to Moroni in the Book of Mormon, the Lord commanded that their history be recorded. Our church historian and recorder today, Elder Stephen E. Snow of the 70, has fulfilled this divinely appointed responsibility spectacularly for 6.5 years. He has the wonderful challenge of recording the history of the church that spans the globe, from Albania to Zimbabwe, from Chile to Norway, and everywhere in between. While the history includes exciting rushes of revelation that affect the whole church, some of the most interesting aspects are the individual stories of faithful members. People who, in their own quiet way, go about living relatively ordinary lives, yet develop Christ-like attributes in facing adversity and selflessly serving others around them. This history includes the stories of people who have fallen off the covenant path, but who, through the atonement of Jesus Christ, found their way back. Saints, the standard of truth, has transported and inspired me as I read accounts of individuals who do and who don't figure prominently in church history. For example, I'm motivated by the zeal of Phoebe Peck to share the gospel with friends she loved. I'm thrilled to see how God answered the prayers of Lydia Bailey and Newell Knight as they courted and married. I'm strengthened by reading how Elijah Abel overcame adversity, refined his faith, and displayed caring concern for his new converts, Eunice and Charles Franklin. I'm humbled by the contrition of W.W. Phelps and by the overwhelming love and forgiveness the prophet Joseph Smith showed him. If you don't know who these folks are, Saints is for you. These real-life experiences are threads in the beautiful tapestry of the Restoration. The Lord uses individual histories to teach us how to draw closer to Him, to repent, and to become more like Him. That's our purpose for being on earth, the purpose for the gospel, and the purpose of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's one of the purposes for recording the history of this church. I'm grateful to Elder Snow, who's overseen this project of writing a narrative history of the church. Saints, the standard of truth is accessible, accurate, and compelling. Elder Snow will now provide an overview of this undertaking.
Thank you, Elder Renlund, for your kind words, and thank you for being here. I've looked forward to this day for almost 6 years, and I'm thrilled to be here today as we release the first book in a 4-volume series, Saints, the story of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the latter days. The Saints Project has been a labor of love for many, and it's really gratifying to present this volume to members of the church around the world. The church has published two multi-volume histories in its past. The first goes way back and was begun by Joseph Smith and is known as the History of the Church. These two histories are on our bookshelves here. The second, written by B.H. Roberts for the centennial of the church in 1930, is known as the Comprehensive History of the Church. Now, it's been almost 90 years since then. In 1930, church membership was less than 1 million and was centered primarily here in the Intermountain West. Today, the church has over 16 million members with congregations in 140 nations around the world. So it's clearly times have changed, and it's time scholarship and knowledge have increased, and it's time for a new history for the global church. The first 7 chapters of Saints have already been serialized in the church magazines, the Ensign, and for the International Church, the Liahona. And my reports I received back people have indicated that they found it enjoyable and engaging. In writing Saints, we have tried to follow the counsel of President Brigham Young given to the church historians in 1861. Quote, "Write in a narrative style," he said, "and write only about 1/10 as much." End of quote. Saints draws on the power of narrative, but it is not fiction. It is a true story based on the records left behind by the early saints and by others. Every detail and every line of dialogue is supported by historical references. With Saints, we hope to reach a worldwide audience of church members with the focus on speaking to those the scriptures refer to as the rising generation. For many Latter-day Saints around the world who do not speak English, the primary way they have learned about the history of the church has been through brief works such as Our Heritage. These short summaries give a broad overview of church history, but do not go into great depth or provide needed historical context. Saints is a response to this need for a more in-depth telling of our story. As of today, Saints is available online at saints.lds.org and on the Gospel Library app in 14 languages: Cebuano, Chinese, English, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Samoan, Spanish, Tagalog, and Tongan. Saints is also available as an audiobook in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And we are releasing this book in print in English today and in 13 other languages by the end of the year. In the United States, this book will cost $5.75. Quite a bargain, I might add, for a 700-page book. In many countries, the book will be even less expensive as the church subsidizes the cost to make the book more affordable. Saints is written with accessible language, but that does not mean that it is a simplistic telling of our story. Just the opposite is true. Readers will discover familiar stories alongside lesser-known characters and events, as Elder Renlet has demonstrated. They will find stories of sacrifice, courage, disappointment, failure, and triumph. They will learn about difficult topics and witness God's hand in the lives of his children. I'm now pleased to introduce Matthew J. Groh of our Publications Division of Church History.
It's fitting that we meet today in the Church History Library. Saints is based on the records left behind by the early Latter-day Saints. These records, many of which were brought across the plains by the early pioneers, have been painstakingly preserved for generations. We are grateful to the archivists and librarians who have cared for these records over time and who do so now. Using these records, we've worked diligently to share new stories and to ensure the historical accuracy of saints. As Elder Snow has mentioned, this is a narrative history. Our team includes historians charged with finding the best sources and understanding the historical context, creative writers tasked with making the narrative engaging, and editors who work to ensure that the book is accessible to our audience. I would like to thank the many excellent people who have helped research, write, review, publish, and publicize saints. The narrative is structured around the lives and stories of real Latter-day Saints. The book introduces characters who reappear throughout the book, and even sometimes in the next volume, so that readers can identify with them. We presented the characters as three-dimensional, with struggles and triumphs, with flaws and with virtues. We present scenes through the point of view of an individual Latter-day Saint. We want to hear their stories and learn from their perspective. In Saints, we have told the story of church leaders and laity, and both women and men. Readers will learn much about Joseph Smith, and they will also learn about saints like Drusilla Hendricks, a strong and spiritual woman whose husband was shot and disabled in the conflict in Missouri in 1838. And Drusilla figures as a character in our Volume 1 and our forthcoming Volume 2. We have sought to show the early globalization of the church by following missionaries to Canada, England, Jerusalem, and the Pacific. We hope that readers get the sense of the global nature of the story from the first page, which begins with the explosion of a volcano in Indonesia. Saints also weaves into the larger narrative lesser known and potentially challenging topics. Readers will learn about the beginnings of plural marriage in the church by hearing the perspective of church leaders such as Joseph Smith, but also hearing from some of the women involved, such as Mary Elizabeth Rollins Lightner and Emily Partridge. A guiding theme for this series is the goal of Latter-day Saints to build temples where they could receive spiritual power and be sealed with their families together for eternity. Thus, our Volume 1 ends not with the killing of Joseph Smith or with Brigham Young becoming church president, but with thousands of Latter-day Saints performing ordinances in the Nauvoo Temple in December 1845 through February 1846, before they left the city of Nauvoo for their trek west. An image of the Nauvoo Temple is thus the central piece of the art on the front cover of the book. Saints is also a multi-layered experience. The core of that experience is this narrative. Readers desiring more information on a particular topic will find almost 100 pages of endnotes and bibliography, in very small type, I might add, pointing them to the primary and secondary sources on which the narrative is based. In the online and electronic versions of the book, many of the endnotes contain links to the digitized original sources here at the Church History Library and elsewhere. In addition, today we published 116 church history topics that are referred to in the footnotes of Saints. These topics will be available in the same 14 languages as the narrative. They further explore themes, peoples, places, and events, and contain recommendations for further reading. I will now turn the time to Elder Quentin L. Cook of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. I might add that Elder Cook will be hosting a worldwide devotional face-to-face event this Sunday evening from Nauvoo that will answer questions from young adults on the history of the church. Kate Holbrook, a specialist in women's history, and myself will be joining him for that event. Thank you.
On behalf of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, we express appreciation to the scores of people who have made this narrative history possible. We particularly express gratitude to the church historian, Elder Stephen E. Snow, the assistant recorder, Reed L. Nielsen, and the director of and the director of the Publications Division, Matthew J. Groh. They, together with the editors, writers, research specialists, have meticulously researched and written this magnificent work. Over the next several years, the church will publish 3 more volumes of the Saints series. The subtitle for each of these volumes has been taken from Joseph Smith's statement in a letter to John Wentworth in 1842. Joseph wrote, "The standard of truth has been erected. No unhallowed hand can stop the work from progressing. Persecution may rage, mobs may combine, armies may assemble, calumny may defame, but the truth of God will go forth boldly, nobly, and independently till it has penetrated every continent, visited every clime, swept every country, and sounded in every ear, till the purposes of God shall be accomplished, and the great Jehovah shall say, the work is done." The subtitle of Volume 1, which covers from Joseph Smith's boyhood to the completion of the Nauvoo Temple in 1846, is The Standard of Truth. The next volume will tell the story of the pioneer era in the American West, a period of accomplishment, but also opposition. Its subtitle is No Unhallowed Hand, maintaining the theme of temples. It will end with the dedication of the Salt Lake Temple in 1893. The covers of each of these, and I'm going to go through the last 2, are portrayed in these renditions, these paintings. The one we're celebrating the release of right now is the one on the far left with the Nauvoo Temple on it. The one I'm just talking about is the second one, which has the Salt Lake Temple on it. The subtitle of the 3rd volume is Boldly, Nobly, and Independent. This volume will cover the globalization of the church in the first half of the 20th century and ends with the dedication of a temple in Switzerland in 1955, the 3rd one there. The final volume, with the subtitle of Sounded in Every Ear, will tell the story of the church since then, with an emphasis on the growth of the church around the globe. 3 temples on it will cover and will symbolize areas when temples were constructed around the world. 1 will represent South America, 1 Africa, and 1 Asia. The team is hard at work researching, writing, and editing these 3 books. We anticipate that all 3 will be published in the next 4 years or so. Saints is an official history of the church. The project was commissioned by the First Presidency, and the final product has been reviewed by many individuals, including experts in church history employed by the church, as well as at various universities, representatives from the General Auxiliary Presidencies, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, and the First Presidency. In a formal message from the First Presidency contained in the book, they expressed their desire that this volume will help readers remember how merciful the Lord hath been unto the children of men. In this spirit, we are pleased to present Saints, the story of the Church of Jesus Christ in the latter days. Thank you.